Hey, good afternoon, everyone. It is a great sunny afternoon here in New Delhi, and we are thrilled to have you all join us today's exciting edTalk. Joining us live from Singapore are two incredible experts, Rajesh Lingappa and Michael Isvy, who are all set to take us on a journey into the world of AI coding assistants. Before we dive in, I have some exciting news. For our attendees joining from India, there's a chance to win rupees 1000 Amazon voucher. Stay with us till the end. We will share steps to claim your prize, so make sure you don't miss out. This Amazon voucher will be totally separate from the quiz Amazon vouchers, which will be provided for the winners in the session. Oh, so there are chances to win? Too much. Now, let me introduce our first speaker, Rajesh Lingappa. Rajesh is a seasoned technologist with over 25 years of experience across industries like telecom, e-commerce, BFSI. He is the former chief architect at DVS and co-founder of RedMart, a leading e-commerce platform. Rajesh brings a wealth of knowledge in building innovative enterprise solutions and evaluating AI tools for practical use. Next, we have Michael Isvy, who's joining us as the VP of Engineering at cynapse.ai. Michael is a true veteran with over 20 years of expertise in Java, Spring, and AI integration. Over the past 3 years, he's been focusing on incorporating AI into software engineering workflows, making him a go-to authority on leveraging AI for coding and application development. Before hand over to our speakers, we would love to understand our audience better. I'm launching a poll. I'm launching a poll now. It will only take a minute to answer. Your responses will help us tailor the session to your expectations and interest. So please take a moment to fill it out. Hey guys, hurry up. Let's fill the poll. Keep scrolling down. There are a few questions. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 questions. That's fast. We're getting a lot of responses. 50% have already filled it. The poll is live for 10 seconds more. 10, 9, 8, 5, 3, and 1. Dear speakers, I hope you can see the results of the poll. Your
Yes.
responses will help us tailor the session to your expectations and interest. So please take this poll. That's what. With that, I'm handing over things to Rajesh and Michael, who will show us how AI coding assistants like GitHub, Copilot, Cursor can transform the way we code. Let's dive in.
Thank you, Ashu. Hi, everyone. So I think I've already been introduced by Ashu, so I'm very excited to be here. We're gonna start. The only thing is I was reading the poll and I see like many of you are not developers. We try to actually explain as much as possible what we do. You might not be able to understand 100% because some is a bit like requires a bit of prior knowledge for developers, but we do our best to make it simple to understand. So let's start. Let's share my screen. Okay, you guys can see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so let's dive in. So we were already introduced by Ashu. So we are Rajesh and Michael. We actually we did this presentation already in Singapore, and it was quite fun. So we thought let's do it again and let's try to improve it every time we do it. So here we are. In terms of the agenda, first we're going to give you like a brief of AI assistants basically, and especially like there are a few options. So we're going to dive in one that we like very much, which is called Cursor, which is actually very popular right now. And we will first have a first demo, which is more in Java, and we will show you how we can actually talk Java to the AI assistant, and we will try to challenge it a little bit and see how far it can go. You know, can it really like replace someone who is a developer or not really? That will be my part, and then Rajesh will actually do the same, but more for like APIs and front-end development. So he will do something which is much more visual, and we'll show you how to build an application using an AI coding assistant. And in the end, we will conclude. So let's get started with the introduction. First of all, you can see, I think if you go on LinkedIn every day, you will see a lot of statements from a lot of famous people telling you that like we don't need to work anymore, no matter you're a developer or you do marketing or you do like product management or whatever, your job is going to be replaced by AI. Is it really true or is it just hype? Okay, so that's the question we're going to try to answer. But you can see like a few statements here. I'm especially keen about the one in the middle, when Google says that actually they already generate a quarter of the new code with AI. To be honest, it's not too far from what we've been seeing so far. This seems like a possible statement to me, but the one on the left and the one on the right, I think it's like seeing very, very far. But let's find out together. Okay, let's see like what we can do with those tools exactly. So in terms of AI for software engineering, I mean, the good thing is that you have an LLM embedded in your developer environment, so you can do pretty much everything. Code completion, automated testing, code reviews, refactoring of large code bases, generating documentation, you name it. Basically, you can actually use AI assistants inside your development environment for pretty much everything. But it doesn't mean that it works perfectly for everything. So let's dive a bit more into the details. And yeah, and of course, the benefits of AI is like, I mean, you can actually improve and increase all those points if you use it properly. So now we're going to actually talk about one tool which name is Cursor, which is actually, to be honest, we didn't know about it 4 or 5 months ago. Before that, everybody was talking about GitHub Copilot, and we were actually playing with GitHub Copilot as well. And it was okay, but it was not amazing. And then Cursor came in and it like destroyed everything, you know, it became like super good. And now everybody is trying to catch up with Cursor. So let's see, like, first of all, as a Java developer, do I, first of all, like what kind of developer environment do I use? So this is a poll which was done by a popular website for Java developers called Baldung. Okay, and you can see that actually most Java developers use IntelliJ. 62% of them use IntelliJ, 15% use Eclipse, 2% use VS Code. Why is it important? Because Cursor is actually based on VS Code. Okay, so if I'm a Java developer, like which I am, and if my favorite developer environment is IntelliJ, which it is, I will have to switch to something different. If I want to use Cursor, I will have to use VS Code here. Okay, that's one first thing which is interesting already. You know, like so, if you use Java, IntelliJ is actually doing some things definitely, and they are working on it, but it's not there yet. Okay, so as of now, the AI code assistance that you have in VS Code with Cursor is much better than what you would have in IntelliJ. So, actually, IntelliJ was like before 23rd of January, support was very limited, but we knew that JetBrains was preparing a major update, okay? And this is actually a benchmark, okay? We are giving you a few points, and this is completely based on our findings. And just a disclaimer, maybe this will be wrong next week, because actually things are moving so fast. We did that presentation 2 weeks ago. We're doing it for the second time now. I already had to change a few things here, okay, compared to the last time we presented, because it changes so fast, okay, it's just to say. So you can see, if I use IntelliJ and I have Copilot inside IntelliJ, there's a lot of things I cannot do. I'm going to show it to you in the demo very soon. But you can already see, it seems like there's a lot of limitations. If I use Visual Studio Code with Copilot, it's better. But if I use Cursor, so actually Cursor is based on VS Code. It's actually a fork of VS Code. Okay, they fork the code base of VS Code because VS Code is open source, and they changed quite a few things to be able to inject Cursor a bit everywhere. So yeah, so that's our favorite for now. Is actually we find that especially the quality of the code completion is much better on Cursor. So yeah, but then the thing is, like, we know that IntelliJ is like JetBrains, the company behind IntelliJ, they are really good people and they are usually very responsive. They want to do top quality. So we knew that they would eventually react, you know. So, and they already actually they announced on 23rd of, sorry, that's actually 23rd of January, not October. They announced that they are releasing like a preview of something called Juni, which is basically the integration of a much better coding assistant inside IntelliJ. So it's definitely coming. And Rajesh and I, we are on the waiting list already. So we cannot wait to try it out. And so that's about IntelliJ. And maybe I'm going to start with a very short demo just to show you what it means exactly. So here I have some Java code. Okay, I have a simple test which is done in Java, and I just want to ask inside. So I'm inside IntelliJ. I'm going to show you what you can do, but I show you that it's also a bit limited. Okay, you're going to understand why. So here I'm saying inside this class here, my greetings of the test that you can see. Please add a Spring annotation. So Spring is the most popular framework for Java developers. So basically, I'm asking it, can you please add a Spring annotation? Okay, I think it's thinking. Sorry, I wanted to show you, but I'll try again. Maybe they're having some performance issues right now. Sorry, I think that's sometimes it happens with LLMs. Like we did that 20 times before, but it seems like it's not really, yeah. Okay, it's like, okay, never mind. Anyway, most of my demo will be on Cursor, not IntelliJ, but it seems it's not really functioning right now. I'll try again later, never mind. But anyway, the thing I wanted to show you is that it's going to generate some inputs, but everything will be in the chat. And if I want it to be in my code, I will need to copy paste it from the chat to the code myself. So it works, but it's very, very tedious, okay? Because if I need to update 5 different files, I need to copy paste manually every time. And that's the issue we have right now in products like IntelliJ, is that it's not well integrated into my main window. I need to copy paste to it every time. Okay, never mind. So let's keep going and let's move to Cursor. So what is Cursor? Cursor is kind of the new kid in the block. So really it was completely unpopular 3-4 months ago. And suddenly it took the community by storm. And now they already have over like 100,000 developers who actually are using Cursor on a regular basis. So some are free users, some are paying users. But it's huge to have such a user base of developers in only 3 or 4 months, because before that they were completely unknown. So they really took the community by surprise, and they're moving very fast. And then you have some competitors like GitHub Copilot and another one called Windsurf, which are catching up very fast. And you can really see that every time Cursor is pushing something, the next week you can see it appearing in Copilot or Windsurf. They are following each other very, very closely. So the pace for innovation is extremely fast. Okay. And it's still a very young company. Okay. That only have 20 people at the time of writing. Which is amazing given like the level of popularity and how fast they can go. That's about Cursor. Like we said, it's you have to use it's based on Visual Studio Code, so you have to use Visual Studio Code for that. It's maybe not the best idea for everyone, especially for Java, C#, C++ developers, but it's okay. And there's a lot of people actually asking, when are you going to have like an IntelliJ plugin or Visual Studio plugin and so on. So that's about Cursor. Okay, now let's do a bit more of coding, and hopefully this will work this time. Like I was saying, so like what I'm going to show you now is actually a lot of Java code. So I'll try to make it not too hard to understand. So everyone, even if you don't have Java experience, you still get the point. Okay. But basically, I'm kind of testing Cursor and the limits of Cursor to know how far it can go. First of all, okay, we're going to start with our first quiz. So like Ashu mentioned at the beginning, we have a few Amazon vouchers for you guys to win. So the first question is, there is a mistake here in this slide. Can you spot the mistake? So you can type it in the chat if you know. And the first one to know the answer will win a voucher. Rajesh, did you get some answers? You're on mute.
We got one. Sorry. Yeah, I was speaking on mute. So there is one answer.
Okay. Is it the correct one? Is it the correct one or not yet?
That's the correct one.
Okay. Maybe you can say the name of the winner. Rajesh, you want to announce who is the winner?
Yeah, the winner is Parth Modi.
Sorry.
Okay. Good. Congratulations. Okay, so let's keep going. So the answer was actually, okay, this is mostly for Java developers. So actually, you cannot have a final keyword here. Okay, so this shouldn't be here. And we're actually going to test Cursor, okay? Because this is actually, if you're not a specialized Java developer, you wouldn't know something like this. And even some Java developers don't know. So let's try to see if Cursor would know something like this, okay? So I'm going to Cursor now. Okay, and first I'm going to open my two classes. Okay, I have a class which is the main class, which is basically like just a hello world. I'm saying hello John. Okay, and here I have a test which is going to test that I'm properly saying hello John. Okay, so first I can run it, I can see the results, and I can see that it's working properly. Okay, so you can see when you have this green checkbox here, that means my test is correct. Okay, so now we're going to go here, and I'm going to ask, please add some string annotations to these two classes here. Okay, and please do it properly. Okay, so I will say, please add some annotations from Spring and Spring Boot annotations to greeting service and greeting service test. Okay, and let's see how it does it. So you can see I'm inside the Cursor, so you can see the logo at the bottom. This is exactly, it looks exactly like VS Code, except this menu here, which is Cursor, and except this panel on the right side that you have here. Okay, so it's actually finished the generation, okay? And it's actually proposing, actually it's finishing, and it's actually proposing a list of, wow, sorry. Maybe my recommendations were a bit too broad, so it's doing a lot of things. So I'm gonna reject it. I'm rejecting, but first of all, you can see it's actually proposing. It's saying, I want to remove this, and I want to add more stuff instead. And here, I want to remove those items in red, and I want to do more things instead. So I'm going to reject everything that was proposed, and I'm actually going to be more specific, okay? So I'm gonna say, please make greeting service a Spring Beam, and please make greeting service test a Spring Boot test. Okay, so then it should be a bit more like on target. I will not try to rewrite my code completely, but actually it will actually be just adding a few annotations. Okay, so you can see that what I have here is one more annotation. What I have here is Spring Boot test here, and like you can see, by the way, it's removing in red is what is being removed. So it's removing the final here, and you see there is no more final. Remember the quiz we did together? So it knows, okay? It's pretty smart, okay? It's at least in this first test, you can see it's kind of a good Java developer, okay? I'm happy, so I'm going to accept. And I will go back to greeting service test here, and I will run my test again to make sure it still passes. Yeah, and then I have the green bar, so everything is good. Okay. So you could see like a first step into Cursor. Okay, you can see that you have the composer on the side, I can prompt, but also it's making changes into my files directly. And actually, it did it properly. It did kind of everything that I needed. Okay, so I'm quite happy about the results. So far, so good. Okay, now I'm gonna go and try something else. So let's go back to our slides. So it did the first step, it did it pretty well. And now, you know, like usually when we work with Java and Spring, we like to work with databases, okay? And the most popular database way to interact with the database in Java is to use something called JPA, or Java Persistence API. So I need to have like a few annotations when I do it. So you can see I have my student, which has an ID and a name, and I want to map it to a table in database, which also has a column ID and a column name. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually, so I need those annotations. And if you look into my code right now, I have this class, but it does not have any annotations. Let's start from scratch again. So if I go into my second demo, you can see I have this class called visit, okay, but it doesn't have any annotations here, okay, which means it's not ready for me to actually insert it into my use it as object relational mapping to do some insertion in database. So what I'm going to do, I will say, please make visit a JPA entity. Please be concise. Okay, because sometimes it's adding too many annotations. Let's see like how it's doing it. I'm gonna do the generation. Just wait for a second. Okay. So yeah, so you can see it's actually proposing something which is not that far from the slides. Okay, I think it's good enough, and I can actually accept it. Okay. Actually, there is just one thing. Okay, for me, I'm used to it. So there is one thing I don't like is this thing here. Okay. So I'm going to remove this as well because it's like this by default. I don't need to say it explicitly. And by the way, this actually should be unique. So I'm just going to add unique. And by the way, you can see this is also provided by Cursor. I'm just typing column, and it knows that. And then next step should be unique equals true. So I just press tab, and it will actually autocomplete. So it actually made a call to the LLM underneath. And actually, it knew that the next step should be unique equals true. Okay, so it's pretty smart. So here I have a class which is exactly like if I did it myself. Okay, I'm pretty happy about it. Okay, so then we're gonna keep going. We can go back to the next step on the slides. But before we do, actually, we have one more quiz. Okay, so same, it's more for people who are familiar with Java and Spring. Here you can see that I'm adding I'm in a test. Okay, student service test, and I'm adding an annotation here at transactional. And the question is, what happens exactly? Okay, and if I can ask my question more precisely, okay, what is exactly in the transaction? Okay, and what happens at the end of the transaction? Does it complete? Does it roll back? Anything else happening? So yeah, you can answer in the chat, and the first one to have the correct answer will win the voucher. Rajesh, do you know if you have the correct answer?
No one has typed in yet. I'm watching this time.
Okay. Okay, maybe it's a difficult question. Maybe people don't know. Okay, let's see not.
Nope.
Okay, never mind. So actually, I'm giving you the answer. So what happens is that there is a begin at the beginning. Okay, so basically the transaction starts here, but because it's a test, it will roll back in the end. Why? Because it doesn't want to actually pollute the data from the database. Because if there are multiple tests, they should actually leave the database in a clean state after they finish. Okay, so if you have 3 tests, one after the other, they should all leave the database in a clean state. Okay. So same thing. Okay, let's go into Cursor and let's try to code it. Okay, before that, because I'm very lazy, so I'm gonna ask also Cursor to say like inside visit repository. Sorry. Okay, I'm gonna ask it to transform this into, so I'm just like, you don't need to understand everything, okay? But you can see I'm trusting it. I'm making some refactoring in my code, and actually I'm trusting it blindly, and this is good. Okay, I don't have any complaint. Actually, this refactoring was good. And I'm gonna go into my test. And same here, like I have some issue because actually I don't have some test data. So I'm gonna ask, please add some test data inside visit service test. Okay, and you see I'm expecting the reference number V0123. So actually it's smart enough to know that it should actually generate. Oh, it didn't do it the way I want it. Okay, so I'm going to, so you see, sometimes it's a bit unpredictable. So I'm going to reject, and I'm going to say, no, please do it using before each. Okay, that's the way I wanted it to happen. Okay, so I'm going to accept. So I think there's some, even if you're not a Java developer, you can actually understand some interesting lessons from this. As you can see, I cannot just accept blindly everything that the editor is giving me. Okay, I need to actually review what it's doing, and I need to approve or reject. And as you can see, there's been quite a few instances that actually I did reject it and I asked more precisely and so on. So if you're not a developer, you cannot do something like this. Okay, so our job is not dead yet. Okay, and actually I can even tell you that there is, because I'm used to it, there is a small bug here. It should be a 0. Okay, so if I run it, that should be okay. Oh. Okay, probably he changed something. Yes, yes, I know what he changed. Okay, one more time. Okay, maybe there is something. Yeah, I think he probably changed something in my configuration. I won't bore you with this because it's I need to do a bit more changes. But it's just to show, like, basically the idea for you to understand is that it is a productivity tool. It's really helping me. I'm definitely faster than if I was just writing everything on my own. And actually, you can really extrapolate that, because if I was writing like much bigger pieces of code, it would actually do it pretty decently. And then that's when I will save a lot of time. But I can never trust it blindly. Okay, I always need to come back and fix it. Okay, because sometimes it will work well, and sometimes it will do some weird stuff. Okay, and when what it does is not correct, I need to be able to come back and fix it. Okay. So let's go back to our slideshow. Yeah. And I'm just going to, before I finish, I just want to show you a little bit of funny, like some magic which they added into Cursor. So for example, okay, you know, I made some changes into my code, okay? And I actually, because I'm using Git, okay, like most developers are using Git, I made a lot of changes here, okay, which I did in my demo that I did to you. And when I do so, you know, like then I would need to actually type a commit message, and I should explain everything that I did so other developers can understand what I did. But I'm a very lazy person, so I'm just gonna keep like generate a commit message like this, and suddenly you will have a pretty decent commit message. Okay. So what happened? Basically, the LLM actually read like all the changes in all the files here and generated some comments like this. Okay. So it's pretty cool. One more thing that I think is quite nice is like, I don't know for you, but for me, I'm actually quite bad when I use the terminal. Okay. So what they did is they actually added, like a prompt here to help you generate the command line. Okay. So for example, if I want to do like, especially Git is quite hard to work with because sometimes the command line is very technical. So if I want to say something a bit complex, for example, like I want to use Git to cherry pick file, and I will say blah, 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 and this, and then it will actually translate what I said into a comment, okay, which is actually pretty nice. So that's where actually Cursor is good, is like they're really like thinking each and every tiny detail into your developer day to day, and they are trying to give as many helpers, as many assistants as possible. Okay, I think that was my last slide. Maybe Ashu, I think maybe we have time for one question before we move to Rajesh. I don't know if there was any questions in the.
No, I don't think there is any.
Okay. So, yeah, okay. Okay, then I think we can just. Did I replace IntelliJ? Yeah, okay, I can see some questions. Did I replace IntelliJ with Cursor in your local? So yeah, it's a very good question. In my workplace, what we do is actually we keep both. Okay, so we feel like if you want to do some complex debugging, some complex troubleshooting and so on, you need a good debugger. If you want to do things like something very simple, just renaming a package or something like this, it's really complex to do it in Visual Studio Code. And since Cursor is based on VS Code, it will be painful. Okay. So what we do in my workplace, as of now, we actually keep both IntelliJ and Cursor, and we switch back and forth between the both, and depending on what we want to do. So yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll let you take over, Rajesh.
Right. Thanks, Michael. Could you confirm you're seeing the slides and the whole desktop?
Yes.
Okay. And the desktop also, right?
Yes.
Shell. Okay. Perfect. All right. So as Michael mentioned, there's a lot happening in this field, and pretty much everybody, big boys, whether it's Microsoft, Google, or anybody else in between, and also a small startup like what Michael said, even with 20 engineers, they're actually disrupting this space quite a bit. What I'm going to do is basically take it a bit further and look at how to, potentially use this tool to develop a API. We'll be using a simple pets API. Okay, and if time permits, I'll walk through some front end development as well. Okay, so you saw this earlier in Michael's slide. The hottest new programming language is English. So we'll see how much code that we can get done through the tool without me actually doing anything. Okay. So what we are going to do is basically assuming that there is something called pet service, and we have a API spec available, open API spec available for this, and we want to implement that API, and this will be implemented using Node.js Express, and we'll see sorry, how that goes. And essentially, what we are going to do is something like this. You basically use the same tool cursor to basically prompt it. And as you can see, I'm requesting it should be a Express TypeScript and use the Open API spec which is provided. And obviously, I've given the structures and all those things. In fact, I have separated this prompt into a smaller one and provided the necessary context elsewhere. But essentially, this is what it's going to try and attempt, right? So it should have pagination, it should have testing, necessary testing, logging, whatnot. And I also have some specifications around it must be using Node 22 and things like that. Okay. So that's that. Now let's get to terminal. Okay, so this is a new, brand new terminal, folder. So I'll basically copy one simple shell script here. I'll tell you what it does. As you can see, it initializes. Just let me know if you need me to zoom this. I'll try to zoom it better. It essentially, copied this YAML file for me, and also it basically initialized the Git repository. I'll tell you why Git is super important later on. And let's see what is there in temp. It's essentially some scripts to do the testing, which we'll also use later on, right? So let's leave it there. So let's start cursor and just give it a couple of seconds because this is loading from WSL2 anytime now. All right, so we have the code here. And this is essentially what I was talking about. This is a simple, as you can see, yeah, just give me a second. I'm just trying to, yeah. So as you can see, there is a get, a post to the pets, and you can get a single pet just by giving a pet ID. And schema is very straightforward. One ID and the name which is required, and a couple of other properties like, name, tag, and ID is obviously an integer. Oh, realized one small thing. Name does not have a max length, so let's just add maybe 25. Min length maybe 3. Yeah, I think this is good. See, it mostly auto-suggested for all this. Add into March, and okay, so this looks good. What we can do is, what I always suggest doing is do a git status, and this is your baseline, right? So I only have a git ignore and open API spec. So what I will do is git base code. I'll call it base code. You can call it whatever you want. So yeah, so that is there. So from here on, we'll be able to track every bit of code the tool generates, which is very important. I'll tell you why. Right. So let's go here, and we have two possible options. One is chat, the other one is composer, and within composer you have normal and agent. I'll be using agent, and what I'll do is I'll just use a prompt that I've already prepared and paste it here. And it is essentially referencing the file that is here on the left. And I'm going to say it. So, yeah, Michael, it is working now. It is not slow.
Yeah, that's nice. Get your quota back.
Yeah. Okay. So what it is generating is essentially all the necessary files that is required for the Node.js application. It's a package, TypeScript config, and any other types on all the necessary configuration files that is required. Is there anybody with Node.js TypeScript experience in the call? Chat. Okay, it is taking a while because, as you know, we started afresh. We had zero in the code base. I mean, except for this Open API script, it's essentially started writing pretty much everything for us. The controllers, the here, if you open this controllers, model, types, utils, whatever that is required, it is generating every one of those files and the routes as well. I mean, if you see the structure, it is fairly similar to any language framework you might have used, right? It could be Java, it could be Go, it could be any other framework, right? So it's essentially the same. In case you're not aware of Node TypeScript ecosystem, this is essentially similar to any of your other frameworks you're probably familiar with. So it's generating tests now. It's got a lot of work. Let's see how it turns out. All right, so this is what it's saying. So it has finished, and it is basically giving a summary of some of these things, and it is also telling what needs to be installed and all this stuff. I'm not going to code. I'm just accepting whatever it's going to tell. Okay. While that is installing, what I would do is I'll just do a git status. And as you can see, there is a source directory that has been created and with a lot of subfolders in that one. So all I will do is go ahead and accept it. Git AC. Let's see if there's anything else that comes up. Nope. AT, I'll say initial prompt. Okay, so that's done. Let's see if the installation is complete. Yes, it is complete. So what I would do is at this time, tell the tool to basically do one more pass, just to make sure it has done all the things that have been requested, right? So it came back fairly quickly, and it says that, okay, oh, I missed something here. It will go ahead and implement that. Okay. Still doing, it's probably almost done. Okay, and accept all again. Git status. Again, I'll basically commit every single pass, because we asked for a second time. And probably I'll just ask it to do one more round of check. I mean, you can see the pace at which it is generating. I wanted to make sure everything is in order. As you can see, there are two crosses here. So, I've seen this happen after trying it for quite a few times. So this is one of the things I learned, basically to make sure that it does implement every bit of it. There is quite a lot that needs to be done, as you can see. Uh, Basically, take the spec, implement it according to the package that has been told it should use, and to the logs and whatnot, right? So that's essentially what it is doing. It changed two files now, so I'll say okay. All right, one last time. Sorry, it was still updating. My bad. I'll wait for it to complete. Sorry, did anybody answer if they have worked on TypeScript, Node.js?
Thomas Taylor said a little yes.
Ah, okay. So I'm sure you should see this familiar. So we basically have a couple of commits, 2 second passes because I was rushing to commit as you saw. So I hope I didn't break anything. So I'll just do one final pass before I start building and testing this whole thing. And as you can see, I'm not doing anything special here. It's plain English. Finally, please go through every section of the rules one more time to ensure that you're accounted for every rule that has been requested, right? So interestingly, as you can see, missing request body validation. It is doing only now, right? So it took almost like 3 passes after the initial one for it to implement this min3 max 25, min3 max 10, which we added, just before we started this whole session, right? So that's where I think, just basically tuning some of these things and making sure that yes, we get to, a state where it works well is what is required. So yes, it says it is done. I think I'll just go with what it says. Some files have changed. So I'll call this third pass. I'm not like what Michael said. It will generate a fantastic what do you call commit message. I would suggest you all to use it. That's really going to be super helpful because the amount of code that we generated in like such a short order, probably 5-6 minutes. I didn't keep track of time. It will be mind-boggling. To just keep track of it, right? So that's where I think it will be helpful. And as you can see, this line over here, there were 33 insertion and 32 deletions. So that's quite a lot of churn in like within 6 minutes, right? So what we would do here now, once it is basically done, I have a .env file for test. I'll basically that basically sets the Postgres information, and then I'll do npm install once again just to make sure that we didn't miss anything. Looks like we need a few more things. Okay, that is clean and build. Okay, this is clean. This is a good sign. And let's do the test. So it failed, right? So it's obviously missed something this time. Again, I won't bother fixing it. I know what this is. I'm sure Thomas must be knowing. It is saying super test URL is not this thing resolved. So I'll just say, please fix this. Yeah, I mean, even if I don't say please, like what Michael was saying for every one of them, it'll still fix it. But then again, it's good to practice that. Okay. Right. It says it's done. Let's make sure the build is still intact. Okay. Test. And it failed again. What is this? No, it didn't fix the, yeah, it's still there. I mean, what would have been a typical flow in the past, right? So if like let's say we saw this for the first time, we would take this, put it in Google, and basically head over to Stack Overflow and do the whole thing. In this case, I knew what was the issue, but then again, I didn't want to fix it, and I just want to show what the tool can really, whether the tool can really identify and do it. And it is proposing super test to be added in package.json, and basically do the install. I'll accept, right? So sorry, I need to install because package.json was updated. So I'll just install that, build, test. There you go. So the tool basically generated the whole code, and it basically created 9 test cases for us. Okay. I mean, one of the issues we used to have, in fact, I worked in code bases, not too long ago, which had, hardly any tests. So this is a welcome change. If you can see, it basically added post itself. It added 3. One is successful, obviously, sunny day scenarios, and reject if the invalid length, invalid tag length, for example, some of those things. Not too shabby, right? So it's a decent thing, and also it has created overall 3 tests per endpoint. Okay, it's a decent one. And let's see how it performed from the coverage perspective. Okay, Vita is not installed. This is fine. Okay, great. Okay, just take a look at this. One moment. Michael, you would be happy as well. It's green throughout, 100% coverage here, except for this file here, which is 0, and this is 66% for the branch coverage. Except that everything, is looking green. So that's one of the things you get out of the box. I mean, one of the things that's what you miss also, when you're rushing. And if you look at it, we probably spent about 10, 12 minutes. And, whatever was implemented, it basically had every, test covered. And specifically for the server.ts and controller.ts, we can go back and ask it to improve. But before that, let's just do one more thing. npm run dev. So what this does is to essentially start a server, and under it's running on 3000, as you see. Let me go to that temp folder which I showed you earlier. There is a test file. Let's. So this has basically all the tests. So I'll basically do that. You can just do curl or -i. That's there you go. So this is maybe I'll use this one so it's easier on the eyes. Okay, here you go. So this basically worked out of the box. I called the endpoint that it generated just now. Sorry, let me move this. And yeah, the request came over to this, 3000 port. As you can see, it is actually paginated. And if you recollect, I had a prompt which requested, please provide the pagination semantics. As you can see here, the pagination object is saying current page is 1, items per page is 5, total items is 22, blah, 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 that is required, right? So you can actually go to page equals to 3, for example, limit equals to 1, for example. It is there out of the box, right? So that's something you get, without us actually doing anything. And also there was a request to make sure that it is secure. As you can see, I'm sure no matter which language you use, XSS production, CSP and all those stuff, it has to be there. And, that's, course and whatever is required, origin related, every single header is available here, right? Out of the box, right? So that's what you get, out of the box from this one. So let's see. Before we quickly do two more things, one is to just look at the code, how it went, and try and improve the code coverage. Let's try to see if it can take a bit of a load. All right. So one, I'll do maybe. Okay, that is just running a simple load on the server. As you can see, it's basically spinning very fast. It's 200. Okay, and as you can see, it did about 200 requests per second at about 84 milliseconds. Max, that is max, and average was about 22, 23 milliseconds. Of course, it will get better, but this is still in dev mode. We didn't even compile and package and whatnot, but still about 84 milliseconds. So if you look at it, we probably took 20 minutes. So from start to finish with testing, and it's something which is almost ready to be deployed because, even it can take the load and all those stuff, right? So the coverage is there, whatever you need, right? So that's essentially what this is about. And going back to these things, right? So from the test perspective, you saw, it basically had all the tests, which is nicely done. It uses VIT, to basically write all the tests. So no surprises there. Server, we'll come back and see why the coverage is 0. Utils, it basically has logger. Types is an interesting one. As you saw, it basically has, it basically took, sorry, before I say that, in TypeScript, in JavaScript world, there is something called Zort, which can be used for validation. And it basically took the open API spec and translated it into, appropriate thing. And also the pet name is required, whatever the error message that is required. Pagination semantics, whatever, request, sorry, the requirement there was that, it should be within certain range. Page cannot be, limit cannot be more than 20 and things like that. It has been added as well. And defaults are also taken care out of the box, right? Types is important, and model is also important. It basically takes care of all the necessary implementation, and it is neat. Thomas, I'm sure you must be seeing this code. It looks neat, right? Let me know on the chat if you don't agree. And it has middleware, for errors. It has basically added some middlewares and controllers. Again, it's a classic controller, which is basically having list, which is your listing endpoint, show pet ID, and create pet ID. Okay. This brings up one interesting thing. I should show you this. One of the requests was also to follow the operation ID that is there in the Open API spec. Show pet ID, for example, right? So what the tool did was to ensure in the controllers and probably elsewhere to use the same operation ID. So that way it becomes much easier for you, if you're debugging or anything of that sort, you get some level of ease of traceability and all those things. So it just came out of the box for you. Controller, middleware, services, server, whatnot, right? So services is pretty straightforward. It basically takes individual endpoints and calls necessary models to execute it, and it basically goes to the regular database. Nothing special there. That's yeah. So it just basically pulls from this Postgres. That's essentially all it did. Okay, so this is 6:34 already. I think I'll pause here just to take any questions or reactions before we move. I shall not go try to improve the test here, essentially because you can actually get the tool to fix it for you. All you need to do is basically select that specific line and just add to composer in this case, and I'll tell please improve the coverage, and that's it. You don't have to. You just sit back and wait, and sometimes it will happen in one iteration. You might have to spend a couple more iterations, but within 3 to 5 minutes, you'll basically take it up the notch. But then again, the important thing request was that the overall global coverage was minimum 80%. It's there, right? About 81% at the branch. Everything else is much better there. So we'll leave it there. As you can see, the tool can do a bunch of things, right? So let's get back to the slide and see what it can do. So yeah, possible next steps. I've done it elsewhere, but I don't want to waste all of your time. You can add security, observability, integrate with any other frameworks that is required, and also if you have anything like enterprise-wide policies, documentation. It would have, if I'd asked now to generate a README, which is easy for any new employees to know what the code is doing, you'll get that also out of the box. Yeah, things like that. So the other idea was to basically generate a code, front-end code. I don't think we have time for that. We shall not hold you for a long time. But it is essentially the same process, right? I didn't do anything special, but we have highlighted some things here. Like I think Michael also mentioned earlier. So you can use this @ symbol to basically, these are like a special tools within the cursor. You can basically reference a specific code base or a document, and basically tell it to, you reference that one and implement a specific application. That's essentially what this does. Okay. And in this case, what I did was I always wanted to have my own ebook reader so that I can use it anywhere. So we thought, okay, it's probably a good idea. Michael also agreed. So we basically built something around that. So what this particular markdown file had was essentially a simple text-based spec, which I'll show later on if we have time. And this particular Svelte reader is essentially a code. It's a GitHub link to a code which implements the ebook reader, and Svelte itself. Svelte, I'm sure some of you might already know, it's a front end component framework similar to React, right? So React Next.js combination is Svelte and Svelte Kit, in this space essentially, nothing special. And one of the things we also did was to basically have this folder is initialized with npx and all those things. So this is one of the things that I would say we should do. If you saw what I did just now, we started from scratch, right? So while it was good to demonstrate what a tool can do, it is superfluous. There was no need to actually do all of that from scratch. Okay, so if it is a Svelte kit, you know what exactly that needs to be done. You can actually prepare the folder, everything, ready for it, so that you can basically get the tool to implement only the spec that is there, right? So that is something you should look at as well. Let me quickly show what the UI looks like, and this is essentially what it is, right? So it basically implemented everything just by me, prompting, right? So you basically take any ebook file, and it essentially, which book am I reading? So I'm just going to read, pick up something else, and it just maintains the position and it goes back. Everything just came out of the box. Of course, the package did a lot of stuff, but then again, the tool took care of making that into a application, right? So that's one thing. To close off, the other thing which was done was essentially to basically push this a bit further, right? So I picked up this UI from Google Images, and then basically got the team, like a tool to build something similar to this. Okay, this is an image, by the way. There's no Figma, whatever it is. It's just a plain image. And I didn't even give the icons. I told the tool to basically look for icons, and I just told it to use placeholders. It basically took some placeholders automatically, and it came up with some book names, and just added it for us. So right, and the code itself is very succinct and neat. You can actually continue to build on top of it, right? So that's essentially what this tool can do, right? So okay, Anshu, how are we doing on time?
Yeah, Rajesh, we have 20 minutes.
Okay, maybe I'll go through the slides first, and probably if we still have time, we can open the floor for any questions. And if you're interested to look at the code for UI itself, right? So we'll go through that. So conclusion, what we think, after both of us spending, I don't know, probably last 6 weeks or more on this tool, and comparing few other things. As you saw also in the short session, it generally went well, right? So out of the box, you got an implementation. It had a full code coverage, and it could take 200 requests per second, and whatnot, and it is pretty much ready to go, right? So that's essentially what it is capable of doing, and it is a real world application. It's not like a snake game or Minesweeper or something else, right? Ping pong or something else. It's like what Michael and I we were talking about all this while is how to put this in use in enterprise context, right? So truly get value out of that, these tools, right? So that's the whole thing, right? So all the way from database logging and things like that. So as we already discussed, you should keep an eye on the large scale, often non-deterministic code changes, plus and minus. You remember there were 33 insertions, 32 deletions. The churn is quite a lot, which is okay for what I was doing because it was fresh. But like what Michael did, you should be very mindful of stopping, rejecting what you think you don't want the tool to do. That is super important, right? So, and also like what happened during demo for JPA or something, it was non-deterministic, right? So if you ask the same prompt third time, it might actually do something else totally differently. That's where you should basically have some guardrails to ensure that it basically does what you want it to do. And you go with incremental builds. How to do it? You basically do one step at a time, right? So I'll show one quick example later on. Look out for possible hallucinations. So this was an interesting one in the early days. What was happening is that, in fact, some of the open source models were doing this as well. And basically including or omitting certain API attributes, for example. Since it was a pet, very well-known API spec, it basically added whatever it wanted from the attribute perspective, and it also added update and delete endpoints, which I never even asked the tool to do. Those are the kind of things you need to figure, basically be mindful of. And again, like what Michael also demonstrated, you don't need to use this composer tool to fix everything or build everything, right? So they have this nice capability called tab completion. So it basically does a very good job. And the other thing you could also use is the chat, which I showed you earlier, right? So the difference between these three is that chat is free. It is, it uses a mini model. So that's why it is free. And the tab completion is Cursor's their own model, which happens locally. So that's the other interesting thing, which is for free. If you use Cursor, it goes by request. Per request, it charges 4 cents, and you basically get 500 requests for $20 right per month. That's what. Sorry, 20. It's not per month. It's essentially for $20. Okay, and the last one is also important. You own the code, right? So it is just assisting. While we saw everything was built, everything made sense, but at the end of the day, we as humans, we are the ones who are actually responsible, who are answerable to your team, your boss, your governance team, or a regulator if you're working in a regulated industry or whatever it is. So you have to basically take the responsibility for what happens. So you still need to be like I think Michael also mentioned this, you still have to own it and make sure that it is doing the right thing, right? And one thing I always tell is, this first one, and then, to basically keep an eye on large scale changes. That's why, as you saw, I kept doing git status and git status and commit, without which it becomes very hard to comprehend and reason about your code base pretty quickly, right? So now, time for a quick quiz. What is one of the most important things to do when using tools to generate, code at this scale?
Yeah, we have the correct answer from Libin Vargas.
All right, that was an easy one. All right, thank you. So
lots of good answers.
Yeah. So the answer is, be very deliberate about tracking code changes. Don't push it off to a later date. Just do smaller incremental changes. Keep committing it, so it becomes much easier. I'll show you one quick example of what it means. Michael, do you want to take this?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I mean, I think we've been saying it multiple times, but AI assistance should be used under adult supervision. Okay, it's a joke, but seriously, we've seen some people who were more like junior developers using things like Cursor, and I've seen it, and to be honest, it was a disaster because they would just accept everything that Cursor was proposing, and then it takes some senior developers to go back and actually fix all the issues in the code and so on. So whatever you do with it, you have to be responsible for it and you have to understand it. Okay, so especially if you're not a senior developer, if you're not specialized in the language you're using, take your time and take time to make sure it's really done in the way you would do it yourself. Don't go too fast. Of course, if you are an expert and if you want to go super fast, then it becomes like a very strong productivity tool. But it's not a no-code platform. Okay, it's not something that for which you don't need to be a developer. Actually, you do need to be a developer, and you should be owning all the code which is being generated. Like we said, so the second point, like for Java options, it's more in general, like everything that space is evolving super fast. Okay, if you had done that presentation 3 months ago, it would be completely different because the tools were not as good as they are now. And if you do that presentation in 3 months, it will be totally different as well because they are all competing with each other and they are evolving so fast. How much it costs? So if you want to use GitHub Copilot, it's free for now. Cursor can be tried for free, and then it will be $20 per month. Okay, and if you think that maybe $20 per month is actually quite a big amount of money, actually, my personal belief is that this is heavily subsidized. I think that now they raised a lot of money, like Cursor raised like I think $60 million or even more, and they actually use the venture capitalist money to subsidize the cost because they are using very expensive LLMs and they are making tons of requests to the LLM, which is expensive. So I'm pretty sure that once they reach maturity, it's like when you take an Uber, some ride-hailing platform, it was very cheap before, and then they increased the price. I wouldn't be surprised if in the future they would increase the price of Cursor, Copilot, and so on, because running those LLMs is very expensive. Okay.
All right.
And so for the demo I did on Java, if you want to maybe play with it, redo it at your pace. So this is the GitHub repository, and there's a README file, and you can go step by step with guides. And also, when we prepared for that presentation, we actually found a blog which was really, really well explained and well detailed. So if you want to read further, you can go on builder.io and read this blog. It's very good. That's the resources we use to prepare this presentation.
All right. Thank you. And I just thought of adding this one last thing at the end. The way the tool actually interacts with you, it's so human-like, right? So when posing with some issues and all those things, it basically comes back with very clear, detailed answers in place, and also there are a lot of small little learning moments, right? So it's it basically came up with what we can do. This is a different repository, by the way. I've been working on a couple of different projects. So this one is saying once we did a refactoring, the code became from 450 lines, it was about 53. So this is how the model was reacting to the change, the refactoring, how it went, right? So that's essentially what this is about. All right, so let me quickly show something else, because Michael just mentioned about LLMs. So as you can see, we have been using Cloud Sonnet. Now, sorry, that's what Michael was also using. And the other one is also good as GPT-4o. These are the two ones which are actually charged and the fast ones. And the other ones are essentially these GPT-4o mini and all these things. These are free. And obviously DeepSeek is also free. But unfortunately, DeepSeek, we did not have a good success yet. And sometimes it even says, it's not supported. Let's see if it is there today. No, it says unsupported model even today. So yeah, but otherwise, the real fast models really working well is Cloud. That's essentially what we used, right? So most of the time. Since we talked too much and so Libin got this right, I just want to show something. If you see, this is essentially what the code commit messages that I've been using generating, right? So this, whether it's a show or fix or whatever it is, and there are Husky and other packages, as you know, which makes it much easier for you to do it. So every bit of it is actually tracked, even though it is a very simple application. So this I feel as a note, we should make sure to keep in mind. Okay. All right. I think we are done. We have 8 minutes. If we can be of any help in answering any questions, we will be glad to do so.
Are there any questions?
There is a question from Thomas of whether or not we would use AI assistant for TDD, test-driven development. Do you have any opinion on this, Rajesh?
Sorry, I was trying to type this out. What was that again, Michael?
Yes. Would you use something like a cursor for test-driven development, TDD?
Oh yeah, you could. That's a good question. Very good question. So what we did, what we end up doing in this case was the other way around, where code was generated based on the what do you call the spec, and then it basically added this. But yes, it is possible. I tried it in a smaller use case. It's essentially having this red green repeat cycle. It is doable. That's a good question.
Okay, I think that's all. That was the last one.
All right. Just
So we
right,
will post. Yes.
yeah.
Good evening, everyone. What may I?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Anshu.
Good evening, everyone. What an incredible session we have had. With hundreds of participants joining us today, the setup was truly informative and inspiring. A big thank you to our exceptional speakers, Rajesh Lingappa and Michael Isvy, for sharing their insights and practical demos on AI coding assistance. Your expertise has undoubtedly left a lasting impact on all of us. Congratulations to the winners of today's quiz. Your prizes will be shared with you soon. For everyone else, there's still a chance to win ₹1,000 Amazon voucher. How? Let me tell you. Like and follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. Leave edForce a Google review. Take a screenshot and email it to us. The details and instructions along with the recording link will be shared to you in your inbox tomorrow. Thank you all for your participation and engagement. It's been a privilege hosting you today. Let's continue to embracing innovation and upscaling together with edForce. Can I see a lot of emojis with claps for Michael and Rajesh? Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Rajesh, for the amazing
Thank you very
session
much, Anshu.
that we had today.
Thanks, Anshu.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Thank you. Thanks for joining. Bye-bye.